Well, thanks everyone for joining us here today. This is Chris Harley from DataBasics. What we were looking to do today is take about 20 minutes of your time, and as you see here, the topic is a better way to manage P cards. P cards is a topic that here at DataBasics we continue to see a great deal of interest in it, and we've been working on a series of these short webinars over the last year and a half or so. And so one of the ones is we were looking at the calendar here for 2019, we really looked at P cards. And you'll continue to see that as we continue to see a lot of companies coming to us looking for, as you'll see here in the title, just a better way to manage P cards. As far as the agenda and introductions here from my side, again, I'm Chris Harley. I'm the Vice President of Sales here at DataBasics. I've spent about 19 years within the organization. And really what the agenda we wanted to go through today was just to kind of cover a couple items as it relates to kind of key challenges that we're seeing within P card processing. Then talk about what technology is out there and how that is giving organizations a better way to go out and manage this process. We'll quickly cover, again, how this ultimately helps organizations and what it looks like as far as the setup. And then what we'll do is spend a minute or two and take you through and actually look at our existing P card solution just so you guys can see kind of a hands-on look and feel here for the solution. As it relates to you guys, if you have questions that pop up during the presentation, the GoToWebinar or GoToMeeting tool that we are leveraging does have the ability for you to go out there and ask questions if you wish. So go ahead and feel free to ask questions. And what we'll do here is at the end, I will take a few minutes and go through and answer any questions that you guys have. Any questions that I don't get a chance to answer here during this call, what I will do is follow up today or tomorrow in writing with just some answers for any other specific questions that you guys may have. And so with that, I'd just like to thank you all again here for joining us today, and let's get into, what companies are looking here for within a P card management solution. For those of you that aren't familiar with DataBasics, we are best known for really our travel expense reporting solution, which has been on the market here for well over 20 years. We got involved in the P card component of this business really as kind of a spinoff as it relates to what we were doing from a corporate card and travel card perspective within our existing travel expense reporting solution environment. We saw a lot of companies that were coming to us to say, hey, look, I currently put corporate cards through your system to support the travelers, but we have a group here or multiple groups here that have these P cards out there, and they're really looking for a better solution to manage and to capture data that we need. And so about 10 years ago or so, we went ahead and kind of took what we were doing from the expense reporting side and fine-tuned it to really focus on what we're doing from a P card perspective. From the organization, we do provide these solutions globally. We're headquartered in the greater Washington, D.C. area, but you will see features of functionality that will support companies no matter where they are located or where they are doing business out there. We have a number of key partnerships as it relates to whether it be banks we're working with, accounting and finance systems. And then ultimately, what we're most proud of is that once we get companies up and running, we continue to receive numerous awards as it relates to our support perspective. And really our key focus, and this is ultimately what we're going to talk about here today, is that what we're trying to do is to provide a solution that will ultimately meet 100% of customers' requirements out of the box. So what we don't want to do is leave gaps in the process, nor do we want to leave an organization with a kind of a one-off solution. So what we try to provide is something that can be easily configured to individual requirements. So as far as the key P card challenges out there, and really kind of the first one I want to talk about is the most common thing here is that most organizations that deploy a P card are typically going to work, or at least initially work, with the solution that's coming over from their bank. Now, that solution typically is provided at a very nice price point. It may be free in most cases. But what we find is that very quickly organizations start to see that what the bank is providing them is just very limited. Where that limited feature functionality may come in, it may be poor workflow. It may be that they're trying to do some more accounting items and they're not able to do the cost allocation. But ultimately, what they find is that what the bank is providing, again, is very nice in the checkbook or the pocketbook, but not very robust as it comes to feature functionality. The other big component out there is, of course, the ability to manage and what to do with the receipts and invoices as it relates to these card transactions. Now, again, it depends upon the individual purchase, but the user needs to get that data in and where those users are, and what we're not seeing is a real easy way to get that information. And And then really the last thing here today is that over the last few years, as mobile devices become more and more, part of our everyday, not only our personal life, but our work life, is companies are looking for better solutions out there for the ability to manage these P cards with something from the mobile side. Now, those are really the key challenges that we're typically tackling day to day. The nice thing about this is that there really are ways that technology can help. And we'll talk about that here in the next couple slides, but the first thing out there is that, as we look at integration and the ability to get to data, it really has changed. Years ago, people were very concerned about, the pushing and pulling of data, the management of the data. And so really the open platforms are providing us a better solution out there. The other areas that you have solutions out there that now are simply just more robust, and we'll talk about where that more robust functionality takes place. I'll show you what we're able to do from a mobile app perspective and how that ultimately plays into what we're doing from the P card side. And then the last component here is, of course, is just looking at reporting and giving people better access to better data. So the first one is kind of open integration. When we first started getting card data moved over into our expense reporting platform, and this goes back probably 14, 15 years ago, it was a very unknown science. It was very clunky. It was very kludgy. And what we were able to do with it was just quite difficult. Today, that is very different. We now, and banks now, give you the ability to get to whatever data, since it's your data. They aren't restricting that data. And even the frequency and the speed of that data has even improved from going from, if you were a small business, maybe they wouldn't give you the data depending upon the program you're on. Maybe that data was only coming over on a predetermined basis. And so what we are seeing is that banks just simply aren't as restricting, and we're able to get to better data, and then we're able to take that data and easily integrate it into other systems within your process out there. So the dependency on, hey, I can only work with what my bank is providing really is long gone. And now what we're able to see is that DATABASICS and other expense platforms can sit as the solution to go ahead and integrate that data into your accounting platform. The other thing here, and this is probably the biggest component of why companies are looking for third parties and looking into a better way to manage, is really just the overall flexibility out there. Probably the first complaint I always hear is that companies are saying, we wish we had more levels of workflow, or we could have more people review what was taking place on the P card side. And so one of the things that you're able to get these days is the ability to have multiple levels of workflow. So if we've got a transaction that maybe it's a large transaction, and we want to have a controller and a VP of finance or a department manager or a program manager review it, you do now have the ability to have multiple levels of workflow. We have many companies out there that are looking, when they code the P card transaction, to go out and to actually do some sort of project or cost accounting to it. And what they want to do is maybe split an allocation. So maybe you're trying to take a purchase. You purchase something for multiple programs, and you want to go out and say, well, this cost should be split among these 3 programs. So the platforms today will give you the ability to go out there and to do kind of a split allocation out there. And once we start looking at having multiple levels of workflow and splitting cost allocations, the ability to enforce policies. Was this purchase, or should this purchase have taken place? Was the purchase too large? Or do we need to have, again, someone else review within that? And then really the last piece here, and this is, again, probably one of the big time-saving components out there, is that within the new P card tools that like we can provide and others out there is OCR technology. So if a user does have a PDF of a receipt or an invoice for a transaction that he or she put on a P card, what we are able to do is now go ahead and to push that receipt into the solution, have our solution read that data, match it to the card transaction, and automatically pull it over. So ultimately, it creates a streamlined process, but also a much faster process as it relates to the user out there. And of course, ultimately, as we get this data, what we're looking for is a faster way to go ahead and to have updates out there for the user. Now, one of the other technologies that has come about in the last few years, and obviously it's been out for a number of years with mobile apps, is the ability to push that P card through the mobile app platform. And so if we do need to do that, of course, we're going to provide access anywhere. What is critical with the mobile apps these days is that you're working with a mobile app that is a full functioning app, that it's not just kind of a stopgap measure or a mechanism providing you just a limited feature functionality set, but rather it's going to do everything that the user may need to do, and that includes the ability to capture receipts. So if this is someone out in the field, we can go ahead and take a picture of a receipt, or of course we can have a vendor, if they're working with someone like a big store like a Target or a Staples and others, be able to provide those details as receipts. And then go ahead and have that data OCR. So if someone goes into Home Depot and purchases, a bunch of shovels with a purchasing card, he or she can go out and take a picture of that receipt and basically go out and have the solution read that data right off the receipt and pull it over into the solution, not only in the web experience, but also through the mobile app component here of this solution. And then again, with someone out in the field looking for access anywhere, we can also go ahead and do push notifications. So not only email, but also leveraging the app to go ahead and push those notifications out to the user. So again, if he or she needs to get transactions coded, submitted, approved, they should be able to do that from wherever they may sit out in the field out there. Now, one of the things that we do often see is what we've been talking about up front, which is just kind of a better way to process as it relates to coding, access, policy, workflow. On the back end part of this process, one of the things that companies also are looking for is just a better way to get to data. Now, again, if you're using a bank system, they typically are going to have some canned reports they provide out there to you. But where the limiting functionality comes in is just the ability to go ahead and to get some more data. So again, we talked earlier about, if we have a P card transaction that needs to be coded to, a project or a department center or a cost center, we can now get into our solution and go ahead and be able to pick up that and see that in an analytics platform on the reporting front. All this data, again, is real time. So if you're trying to reconcile data, as we sit here on a Wednesday, if you want to reconcile all the P card transactions you have for this month or for this week, you can get that information real time and to see exactly what takes place. And as we look at these reports, all of this information can be scheduled and automatically delivered to you on a predetermined basis out there. Now, ultimately what we've been talking about here is a better way to manage this P card process. And so people always say this, well, Chris, or to our staff here, how does this work and what does it look like? What we're talking about here today would be leveraging obviously a third-party system like a DATABASICS or someone else to push your P card transactions through. When we sit down with an organization to deploy that, what we would typically do is start with the business analysis step. So we would sit and understand what you're currently doing, what you're looking to do. And when we say what you're looking to do, that would be things like, what are your challenges out there? Do you want to have multiple people approving P card transactions? Do we need a better way to code those transactions? Do you wish you had better policy enforcement? So we would typically sit with you and go through a business analysis step to figure out exactly what's taking place there. The next thing we would do is we would look at how ultimately this is going to integrate. So in the case of us working with your bank, we would typically take over the relationship as it relates to the integration side, just to make sure the data is flowing over properly and at the proper time frame. And also that mapping as it relates to not only pulling the bank card data into the solution, but also if we need to push the solution data over into an accounting solution. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to test the application to make sure it's working perfectly. We're then going to train the team that's going to be working with it and then ultimately roll out the solution. Once the solution is out and deployed, what we do is then provide support to the organization to make sure that, again, if changes take place and other components out there, you do have the ability to go ahead and to have support and to have questions answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's not a big process or a big change out there. That's another question we get. People always say, well, hey, how difficult is it? How long does it take to set this up? Normally we would see it's a matter of weeks to make the transition from the existing bank system over into a solution like a DATABASICS and others out there. The transition as far as moving the card data from the bank into a solution like ours is a very easy cutover. Really, the biggest process you have here is a matter of sitting down up front, putting in place a plan, and also putting in place a plan for how you're going to roll out and address any item that may take place once that happens. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look here at this solution. And what I have today is the ability to take a look at the DATABASICS offering here from a P card perspective. So with that being said, one of the things you're going to see here within this platform, and this one is tailored specifically to kind of a demo environment. But what would happen here is users going to come into the platform. the first thing the user is going to see here is that, in this case, this guy's got 122 card transactions that need to be coded. Now, again, the process to code this and to pick this up can be done different ways. Who has access to this can be managed by the individual organization. Now, in this particular case, what you'll see here is that this user, again, I can see right here, I've got 122 card transactions. But what this user also has is a library of receipts. And you'll see over here going down the left side of the screen, this user has a library of receipts that sit here. Now, these receipts that the user has can be pre-populated into the application by either getting a direct feed from a vendor. The user can go ahead and upload a receipt, or if he or she chooses to, they can go ahead and take a picture of a receipt and pull it over in the application. So what we like to provide first and foremost is just a nice, easy way for me to see all this data. Now, in this case, I should have also mentioned that we're running this here through a web experience of the application. I could be doing the same process here on the mobile device, but I'm just going to open up and continue to work off these transactions I have here for January. Now, what you'll notice here is that I already have a card transaction in here. This has already been coded over, so this is a transaction that came over from Amazon, and I can see the amount. It was company paid, that date it came through. If I needed to have any sort of coding take place, you can see down here that I was coding to different locations and departments, and I can see that, and I can split these allocations if I wanted to. So I can see here that I took this $196 transaction and split it between two different locations at the same department, so I can see all that allocation here. I can also see here the receipt that was related to that individual transaction, so I can see that taking place here within this process. If I want to go ahead and leverage the OCR technology within the platform, what you'll notice here is I can come in here and just simply select the receipt that I want to add to this report. And what you'll see here is the application is going to read the data off the receipt. So it read that it was $44.80. It is also matching that transaction up against a P-card transaction. So it recognizes that. And what you'll see here for the user is I just simply next need to come in here and choose the expense type. Now, again, I could have we could hard code this based upon merchant codes and industrial codes. And then once that's done, it's going to go ahead and drop that data right over into this report. And what I've done is I've now gone ahead and coded that data as it relates to that $44 transaction for software and services. Now, as it relates to the rest of my card transactions, I could continue to work through here if I wanted to. So I can come in here, I can apply, I can itemize these individual transactions as I want. So it's a matter of just the individual user coming in here and kind of picking those transactions. And again here, in this case, you'll notice for this Google transaction, it already knows the expense type, but I can simply come in here, plug this through the solution. If I want to have multiple people approve it, I can certainly go ahead and do that. If I need to add a receipt to it, again, I can very simply go ahead and add a receipt in there. But the big component we want to look at here is that what you're having is a solution that's going to give you some more flexibility as it relates to what you're doing on the accounting side. Also give you a solution that's going to give you the ability to very easily get those receipts into the solution. And also, if needed, any sort of policy enforcement that needs to come through here within the solution. Again, I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to take a look at this solution. I'm sure there's individual challenges that each one of you may have. Looking at the different organizations that we're going to be sitting on this webinar, I know it covers everything from federal contractors to manufacturers to professional service organizations out there. So I'm sure there are different types of transactions and different components that you guys want to have mapping take place, and that would be something we would certainly do here within this solution. Once a user is done with the transactions that are his or hers, they can go ahead and submit that, or they can save this and continue to work through it, as it relates to additional transactions as they come through. What you're not going to see here in this individual environment right now are any sort of the notifications and components that we have taking place, nor within the admin tool the ability to see dashboards and receipts and those components out there. But with that, we've reached just about the 20-minute mark. What I wanted to do here is I'll take a look at some of the questions that you guys have been answering and asking. And again, if there's any items here that I missed, I will make sure we will cover that here via email over the next 24 hours or so out there to you guys. So let me look at a couple of the questions here. one of the first questions is pricing. How do we price the solution? Great question. So as we look at the application, the way we're going to price it is based upon P-card transactions out there. So depending upon what the volume is, that's going to dictate where that starting point is. For companies that don't have a huge number of transactions, you may be paying $1 or $2 per transaction. As that volume goes into the thousands, you may be paying anywhere from 60 to 80 cents per transaction for the processing. Now, within that cost, that really covers all components. So it's going to cover support, maintenance, upgrades, data storage, 2 instances of our solution, mobile apps, and all the rest is out there. So it's going to cover all components there. Second question. Well, there's a lot of questions here that it just relates to individual banks. Is it, you work with Wells Fargo, Bank of America, American Express. So the short answer is yes. Most, as we look at the solutions out there, even if you're working with a local bank, a First Bank of X city or wherever it may be, a local bank, if they're using a Visa or a MasterCard, those Visa and MasterCards are still being managed through Visa and MasterCard. So they may have a logo of an individual bank on it, but we're still able to go out and get that data. Same thing goes with American Express as well as it relates to that solution. So again, it isn't really a hindrance these days of the bank that you may be working with out there. We can certainly get to that information. How long does it typically take to transition from a bank solution to an application like ours? We would typically look at, again, it depends on the individual customer, but doing it in a vacuum, we would typically look at about 3 to 4 weeks from beginning to end. There is some upfront analysis as it relates to how this data is going to be mapped and looking at individual chart of accounts and GL structures within organizations. But assuming that everything, the organization, is organized as we come in there, it should be a pretty quick transition over from a bank solution into an application like ours. And then again, there's a question here about, outside the U.S. and others. So the solution and what you saw here today, that I believe those are all U.S. or U.S. dollar-based transactions. If you are doing business internationally or have offices internationally, the solution certainly handles multiple currencies, multiple languages. And in addition, if we have to be capturing additional taxes, if you look at Canadian provincial taxes and other pieces there, all of that would be captured as well here within the solution. Take one more question, and then the rest, what we'll do is, again, follow up here with email. And a question is just about the mobile apps, or same data on the mobile. So yeah, so within the mobile solution, you're going to be able to do everything that you're able to do within the web experience. The only thing that you're not going to have access to on the mobile app would be the reporting platform, which typically you're not going to need to get to report from on the mobile platform. But the solution has got the full feature functionality of all other pieces of it. So the ability to get to this card transaction, approve if you're an approver, to go ahead and to split allocations and all the rest, all that would certainly take place on the mobile platform. Well, with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us here today. My contact details are on the screen, as you see right there. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can obviously reach out to DataBasics as an organization through info@data-basics. If you guys have additional questions, I would be happy to answer those or have someone here from our organization reach back out to you. And if you've got a specific challenge, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to give you advice, or if there's something we can actually help you out with, we would be happy to help you out there as well. So again, thank you very much for the time here today, and we look forward to talking to you guys here in the future.